So the first one, probably is not the first one. When we look into atmospheric science and earth sciences or so, there may be earlier policies, but the first one as a biologist that I know of is the one of the Human Genome Project. And that was in 1996 and was already saying that all the data that are produced in this big project, so it was I think I saw the number of a $300 billion contribution only by the US to this project. All the data that are produced in sequencing the human genome should be rapidly and freely made available. The next policy I found noteworthy is that, well, maybe because I grew up academically in Germany, is the one from the DFG, that is a recommendation of the Commission on Professional Self-Regulation in Science. And they have this beautiful sentence that primary data as the basis for publications shall be securely stored for 10 years in a durable form in the institution of their origin. And I still, after now 15 years, think that this sentence really contains a lot and is a very good pragmatic approach on how to deal with research data. It says we deal with primary data. It says that we deal, as opposed to any possible kind of data, with the data that are used as a basis for publications, and that they shall be securely stored for a time, namely 10 years, in a durable form. That also refers to the fact that we have a problem with proprietary formats and so on, and then in the institution of their origin. And the last point is specifically interesting for all the repositories that are provided at the institutions, even though it's an open question whether each institution should have a data repository or whether we should share this. So then 5 years later, coming from the first statement about the Human Genome Project, I found an interesting new version of basically the same policy that is now much more specific, namely also pointing to tools that can be used for actually implementing the policy. So already here, GenBank is mentioned. It's still a very, very big service in the life sciences and other places where you can actually deposit. And they had a very strong policy of saying even 24 hours within the discovery or the recording of the data they should be published. I think they later softened that a bit, but that was a very strong approach. In 2002, NIH, probably also influenced by the Human Genome Project, issued a draft statement on data sharing in general. So this was something that was not only referring to a specific project, but said as a funder, every funded project that we have should share their data. I think in the end this never really was published, but actually before I entered this area, I saw this policy still as a researcher, and was one of the motivations to work with it actually. So this is stuck. Technical services, please. Trying to make the software available that is needed for rendering the data, and having, I think in the meantime, developed an own journal that is only about databases. So yet another approach to research data policy by journals, and I think Anita this morning said a lot about the publishing role, possible publishing role in this area. Then another funder policy that I find noteworthy, because it's then going more into specific things that actually should be done, so it's not only aspirational, is the one from the DFG, or Collaborative Research Centers. So these are projects, large-scale projects for 12 years, if they go well, and with around 50 PIs, and usually they produce a lot of data. And when this is funded, it's quite a big thing in Germany. They are centered around a specific topic or theme. So the one I have worked for example, and built an information infrastructure project was from heterogeneity to inequality, a sociological theme. And what I find interesting in this approach to research data policy, even though it's guidelines and it's quite practical, but it's the policy approach, is that they say that if we fund these big things, we require, or I think it's optional, but we recommend that this project actually builds an own information infrastructure where data can be stored and made available for others and can be shared. So more recently, the UK came, so the funders are really starting to expect more and more from the institutions. This is what we experienced in Oxford, for example. We had, and everybody in the UK had to do that, to come up last year with an actual roadmap how we want at the institution to support research data management. So we had to input it, and we have to implement the infrastructure until 2015. And the expectation here is also quite opposite to what the DFG does in these collaborative research centers, is to expect that the institution actually pays for it and provides the infrastructure for managing research data. There are many others. So Kevin Ashley from the GCC is here, and they did excellent work in screening the whole scene and classifying what the individual policies do. And this gives a flavor of what, when you start looking for different policies, actually what you will find. Because there are many, many, many different ones. And they all have slightly different statements and expectations to what you actually have to do with your data. Then another beast of policy is the institutional policy, and I took the one from Edinburgh here because it was one of the first, I don't know whether it was the first, but it was one of the first that came out several years ago in 2011. But it's not the only reason. I think also it's still one of the clearest and most concise policies that can be found. It simply has 10 points, and they are also very clear in what they want, namely that this is aspiration, that they don't think that everything is yet established, but that they want to build this in the next years. Then, so in chronological order, last year many of you at least from the European countries, will have seen that the EC also put out a policy on scientific data, which is very much combined with the general idea of open access to publications. Whether or not this is a good idea is maybe a question to be discussed, but they speak specifically about open access to research data. And they expect that this will be implemented in the individual countries. Then another level I still didn't mention was the government. And the UK, for example, has a transparency agenda, and there commits itself to provide all the data that they produce in an open fashion. I just had a chat before this taught that actually this is a problem in many social science areas, that you have to find in very complicated ways all the data on GIS or on employment that are produced by the government. You know, it has even though it's a government policy, it has a research aspect. And then you might have seen that 1 week ago that even the G8 now said that